On the night of December 27, 1948, the world's largest passenger aircraft at the time, the Douglas DC-3, was flying from San Juan to Miami. On board were 125 passengers and 9 crew members, a total of 134 souls. At an altitude of approximately 8,300 feet over the North Atlantic Ocean, the plane was cruising peacefully at 180 miles per hour. It was 8:13 p.m. In the cockpit, Captain Robert Miller and his co-pilot saw nothing but clear skies and normal reading. But suddenly, their contact with San Juan Air Traffic Control, ATC, began to fade. Captain Miller reported that they were experiencing a minor technical issue. That was the last time his voice was ever heard. Within exactly 10 seconds, the aircraft vanished from the ATC radar forever. The plane's last known location was right in the heart of the Bermuda Triangle. What happened that night was far more terrifying than a mere mechanical failure. The plane had become trapped in a vortex within the Bermuda Triangle, a phenomenon no one had ever seen or heard of before. In the blink of an eye, screams erupted inside the cabin. Captain Miller fought with all his strength to stabilize the plane, but it was too late. The storm engulfed the aircraft, tossing it around like a toy. All electronic instruments, the compass, and the radar went dead. The plane was no longer under human control. It was flying blindly at the mercy of the storm's velocity. After struggling in that deadly vortex for nearly half an hour, the plane finally emerged, only to find an endless ocean in every direction. The engines were failing, and the aircraft began a slow, terrifying descent. Suddenly, the co-pilot spotted an island ahead, an unknown, untouched land. Everyone knew death was only moments away. The plane crashed into a massive, ancient tree on the island. The tree's hundreds of thick branches acted like a giant net, catching the plane and cushioning the impact. It was a miracle that saved the lives of all 134 people. While they survived the crash, it was only the beginning of a painful ordeal. Cries and moans echoed from inside the fuselage. Captain Robert Miller, whose head had struck a control panel, regained consciousness and immediately took charge, calming the panicked passengers. Among the passengers was Dr. Evelyn Reed, a retired Army doctor, who wasted no time treating the wounded. 10 people were critically injured, broken limbs, deep head gashes, and severe trauma. Everyone else was in shock but safe. As they slowly descended from the wreckage, they realized where they were. This was an island that existed on no map. It was surrounded by dense jungle, bizarre flora, and a haunting silence. Their first and greatest challenge was water. Everyone was parched, yet there was no sign of a river, spring, or any fresh water source on the island. Their only hope was rainwater. Captain Miller used his experience to organize the survivors into groups. One group was tasked with scavenging food, medicine, and useful tools from the wreckage. The second group worked with the captain to build a temporary shelter. Using broken seats, metal sheets, and giant leaves, they fashioned a makeshift roof to protect them from the night chill and potential rain. That first night, as they huddled together, only one question haunted them. Would anyone come looking for them? Would they ever leave this unknown place? The second morning brought new challenges: the lack of food and the need for fire. The small amount of food salvaged from the plane wouldn't last long. They had to forage on the island, but they had no way of knowing which fruits were poisonous. In a tragic attempt, a middle-aged man ate an unknown fruit and died in agony within hours. This was the first death on the island, and it shook everyone to the core. Conflicts began to arise over the limited food, but Captain Miller and Dr. Evelyn managed to maintain order. That evening, a teenage boy with an interest in science used the lenses from his glasses to focus the sun's rays onto dry leaves. After hours of effort, a thin line of smoke rose, followed by a small flame. Fire. It felt like a monumental victory. Fire wasn't just for cooking, it was their only defense against wild animals at night. Meanwhile, an engineer named Arthur Vance tried to repair the broken radio. After grueling work, he managed to send out a weak signal with their last location and a plea for help. But there was no redons. The radio's battery died, and their only link to the outside world was severed. Days turned into weeks. When 10 days passed without any sign of rescue, 4 young men and 1 girl lost their patience. One night, while the others slept, they took a small raft made from the wreckage and set out into the ocean. They never returned. What happened to them remains a mystery to this day. After those 5 disappeared, the remaining survivors realized they were in this for the long haul. Captain Miller proposed a permanent system. One team hunted and gathered food daily, while another reinforced the shelters. Dr. Evelyn and others took care of the sick. Back in the States, the U.S. government had launched the largest search operation in history. They searched every inch of the Atlantic, but not a single piece of debris was found. After a week of searching, the mission was scaled back. On the island, people were learning the art of survival. They fashioned knives and spears from stones and plain metal. Their biggest threat was the wild boars that attacked their camp at night. A hunting trainer among the passengers taught the others how to use spears and set traps. After days of planning, they hunted their first boar. It was an emotional moment, not just because of the food, but because it proved their unity. They even wrote "help" in massive letters on the sand using coconut trunks, hoping a passing plane might see it. 6 months passed. To the outside world, Flight NC16002 was an unsolved mystery. After spending $45 million, the U.S. government officially called off the search and declared everyone dead. But on this unknown island, a new community was being born. While some died from illness and despair, leaving only 114 survivors, they began burying their dead with honor and supporting each other. At night, they gathered around the fire to tell stories of their old lives. After a year and a half, the first cry of a newborn baby echoed through the island. A young couple had a healthy son. His birth brought a new sense of hope. 2 years in, they were farming and fishing. But the desire for civilization never faded. Under engineer Arthur Vance, they decided to build a large boat. It was their most ambitious project. After months of labor using wood, guns, and plane parts, they launched it. 25 of the strongest survivors set sail, promising to bring help. But the ocean was merciless. A massive storm capsized the boat just miles away. Only a few swam back to shore. 16 people drowned. It was a devastating blow. With 15 already lost to illness and 5 missing from the start, only 98 people remained. Their spirit was shattered. 5 years passed. For the children born on the island, this was the only world they knew. Cars and electricity were just fairy tales told by their elders. But resources were thinning, and the community split into 2 factions. Those who still wanted to escape, led by Miller, and those who wanted to accept the island as their home. During a forage, a group found ancient ruins and a cave containing a human skeleton with a piece of rusted airplane metal. They realized they weren't the first ones trapped here. Was the island cursed? By the 7th year, the count dropped to 82. In the 8th year, a massive cyclone destroyed their shelters and crops. Then came a devastating earthquake. It seemed like the end, but the earthquake shifted the wreckage of the plane, exposing old wires and equipment. A few days later, Arthur Vance was inspecting the debris when he noticed the radio had shifted to a new angle. At that same moment, a massive solar flare hit Earth, affecting the magnetic field. Whether it was the flare or the shifted wires, a miracle occurred. Arthur flipped a switch and heard static. He patched the wires, and for the first time in 9 years, the green light on the radio flickered on. "Mayday, Mayday, this is Flight NC16002. We are alive. We've been stranded for 9 years." In Miami, the ATC operator thought it was a prank. But when Arthur provided the registration number and the captain's name, the room went silent. The U.S. government immediately resumed the rescue. One morning, the 82 survivors woke up to see a dot on the horizon. It was a U.S. Navy ship. 9 years of pain and waiting poured out in a flood of tears. As the rescue team landed, they were stunned. People the world had mourned for nearly a decade were standing right in front of them, weak but alive. Their return shook the world. In 1958, famous author James Baldwin wrote a book based on their experience titled Lost in the Echo, the 9-year survival of flight NC16002. It became a bestseller, a testament to the fact that, even in the darkest void, a small glimmer of hope can pierce the shadows.